The air in New Guinea does not move, it hangs. It is a physical presence, a suffocating blanket of heat and water vapor that clings to the skin, refusing to evaporate. The jungle is a single breathing organism, a cathedral of decay where colossal leaves drip a ceaseless, maddening rhythm onto a floor of rotting vegetation. The world is painted in 100 shades of oppressive green, and the deep sucking ochre of mud that cakes boots, uniforms, and souls. This is not a battlefield of clear lines and heroic charges. It is a primordial hell, and the Australian soldiers of the Owen Stanley campaign are ghosts haunting it, their faces gaunt, their eyes hollow, fighting an enemy they almost never see and an environment that is a relentless, silent combatant in its own right. Among these spectres is Sergeant Arthur Finch, a man who finds his religion not in a chapel, but in the cold, hard logic of mechanics. At 24, he is an armourer, a craftsman whose solace lies in the predictable click of a well-oiled spring and the satisfying slide of a clean bolt. He is not a warrior by nature. He is a man of order, a quiet, meticulous mind who believes that every problem, every chaos, has a rational, mechanical solution. This belief is his shield against the horror that surrounds him, a horror made devastatingly personal by the recent death of his best friend, felled by a single, invisible shot from the Green Wall. If you understand that some battles are fought not with courage, but with quiet, desperate reason, comment with the name of your city to show you're here. The breaking point arrives not with a bang, but with the squelch of exhausted boots returning to camp. A patrol emerges from the jungle's maw, their shoulders slumped under an invisible weight. They carry two burdens, the poncho-wrapped body of another fallen soldier, and a captured Japanese Arisaka Type 99 rifle, complete with its scope. The weapon is dropped without ceremony onto Artie's simple wooden workbench, the metallic clatter, a sharp, ugly sound in the humid stillness. For his superiors, it is a piece of enemy equipment, a curiosity. For Artie, staring at the mud-caked stock and the dark steel, it is a key. It is the beginning of an answer to the question that haunts his sleep. His initial examination begins with the precision of a surgeon. Under the warm, steady glow of a lantern, his grease-stained fingers explore the foreign object. He works the bolt, and it feels clunky, almost crude compared to the smooth, confident action of the British Lee Enfield he knows so well. The finish on the metal is rough, the wooden stock unrefined. Their flimsy-looking monopod extends from beneath the barrel, an addition that seems utterly impractical in this terrain. An unsettling irony begins to hang in the air, thick as the humidity itself. How can this seemingly second-rate weapon, this clumsy piece of engineering, be the source of such devastating surgical death that has been plaguing his comrades? This question becomes Artie's obsession, a quiet war waged within the canvas walls of his workshop. The conflict is twofold, a battle fought on two fronts simultaneously. Externally, he is racing against a relentless clock. With each passing day, the jungle claims another Australian life with a single unseen shot, and the pressure from his commanding officer to provide a tangible countermeasure, any advantage, becomes more palpable. His slow, methodical process is viewed as a distraction from the immediate, bloody reality of the front line. He is told to find a weakness, not to write a dissertation on enemy craftsmanship, but the rifle stubbornly guards its secrets, offering no simple flaws to exploit. Internally, the war is far more profound. Artie is fighting against the chaos of his own grief. His friend's death fuels his obsessive need for a logical explanation, a mechanical reason that can be identified, understood, and defeated. Yet the Arisaka rifle refuses to yield such a simple truth. It forces him to confront a terrifying possibility that the enemy's lethal advantage isn't rooted in their technology, but in something he cannot disassemble, measure, or oil. He begins to suspect the answer lies not in the steel of the weapon, but in the spirit of the man who holds it, a spirit in perfect, terrifying harmony with the green hell all around them. His workbench, a small island of order in a sea of green chaos, becomes an altar for the captured rifle. Under the focused yellow glow of a single lantern, Artie lays out his tools with the reverence of a priest, preparing for a sacred ritual. Fine-tipped screwdrivers, calipers, small pots of solvent, and clean, lint-free cloths. The jungle outside his canvas tent is never silent, a constant wet symphony of dripping leaves and the shrill alien calls of insects. But inside, There is only the quiet, deliberate sound of his work. He begins the disassembly, his grease-stained fingers moving with a practiced, gentle precision. Each pin is tapped out, each screw carefully turned. He expects to uncover a secret, a clever piece of engineering, a hidden mechanism that will explain the weapon's almost supernatural lethality. It is a puzzle of steel and wood, and he is a master of such puzzles. The first wave of disappointment hits him almost immediately. As he works the bolt, it feels coarse, almost gritty, lacking the satisfying, fluid precision of the British Lee Enfield he services daily. The finish on the receiver is rough to the touch, the machining mark still visible under the lantern light. The wooden stock is functional but unrefined, lacking the ergonomic grace he associates with a true marksman's tool. He lifts the components, weighing them in his palm, and a sense of profound confusion begins to settle in. Everything about this rifle feels agricultural. It seems more like a piece of farm equipment than a precision instrument of war. Stamped into the receiver is the imperial chrysanthemum, a symbol of divine perfection. The irony is a bitter taste in his mouth. How could a weapon made in the Emperor's name be so fundamentally unimpressive? His bewilderment solidifies into a concrete technical problem when he examines the 2.5x telescopic sight. It is mounted not on top of the receiver, but offset to the left. Artie stares at it, his mind refusing to process the design. It is a flagrant violation of everything he knows about marksmanship. A centered scope is the foundation of accuracy, a direct, uninterrupted line from the shooter's eye to the target. An offset scope introduces parallax, a maddening variable that complicates aiming and requires constant mental adjustment. His first thought is that it must be damaged, a field modification gone wrong. But the mounting is solid, the machining deliberate. This was not a mistake, it was a choice, a conscious engineering decision that, to his logical, well-trained mind, seemed like a deliberate act of self-sabotage. The rifle offers another absurdity, a flimsy, pencil-thin monopod that folds down from the stock. He deploys it, and the rifle wobbles precariously on the small metal foot. He imagines a sniper trying to use it in the field, in the sucking, bottomless mud and tangled roots of the New Guinea floor. The monopod would be a liability, not an asset, sinking into the soft earth or snagging on every vine. It's an addition that seems born of theory, not practice, a feature designed by someone who had never set foot in this green hell. Each component he examines deepens the paradox. The evidence of his own eyes and hands tells him this is an inferior weapon, a clumsy collection of questionable design choices. And yet he has seen the graves. He has comforted the friends of the fallen. This clumsy weapon is ruthlessly, efficiently killing them. He steps back from the bench, the rifle's components laid out neatly on a greased cloth. They look like the bones of some alien creature, inert and meaningless. The warm, humid air in the tent suddenly feels suffocating. The lanterns glow a fragile defense against the immense, watching darkness outside. The clean, mechanical solution he had desperately sought is not here. The rifle holds no secret of advanced technology, no hidden genius. Its power is not contained in the rifling of its barrel or the tension of its springs. The comfort of logic has evaporated, leaving behind a cold, terrifying vacuum. If the weapon itself is not superior, then the superiority must lie elsewhere. The thought is a physical chill that runs down his spine, a premonition that the answer he seeks is not one he is equipped to understand. This is the true beginning of his investigation. The puzzle is no longer contained on his workbench. He realizes with a dawning sense of dread and a flicker of profound, unwilling respect that he has been asking the wrong question. He has been trying to understand a machine when he needs to understand a man. The Arisaka is not the complete weapon system. It is merely a component. The real weapon is the union of this simple rifle, the jungle itself, and the spirit of the soldier who wielded it, a soldier who did not fight the jungle but became a part of it. The mystery has shifted from the tangible world of mechanics to the intangible realm of the human soul. And in that dark, unfamiliar territory, Artie is completely and utterly lost. With a slow, deliberate breath, Artie begins to reassemble the rifle. The act is no longer one of analysis, but of reluctant communion. He is not trying to find a flaw to exploit. He is trying to understand a logic that defies his own. His fingers, coated in a thin film of gun oil, trace the lines of the receiver, feeling the rough tooling not as a sign of incompetence, but as a deliberate choice. He slides the bolt home, listening to its gritty, unrefined journey. It is then, while cleaning the barrel, that he finds the first piece of the puzzle. The bore is lined with chrome. It's a small, almost invisible detail, but in the suffocating humidity of New Guinea, a place that rusts steel in a matter of hours, it is a stroke of absolute genius. A simple, elegant solution to the jungle's relentless war on metal. The rifle wasn't just built to kill, it was built to survive here. He turns his attention back to the scope, the offset absurdity that violates every principle of marksmanship he holds sacred. He mounts it again, squinting through the glass, then looking over the iron sights, his frustration mounting. It makes no sense. On a desperate impulse, he grabs a spent 5-round stripper clip from a box of .303 cartridges. He holds it over the Arisaka's open action, and stops. His breath catches in his throat. With a centered scope, the clip would be blocked, forcing a soldier to load single rounds. But with the scope offset to the left, the action is completely clear. A sniper could fire his 5 rounds, and without taking his eye from the target or his cheek from the stock, slam another 5 rounds home in seconds. What he had seen as a crippling design flaw was, in fact, a feature born of brutal efficiency. It was a weapon designed not for a single perfect shot, but for a rapid, sustained, and lethal presence. The rifle's secrets force Artie to look beyond his workbench. His search leads him to a small collection of captured documents, their pages warped and stained by the damp. He spends hours under the lantern's glow, poring over crudely translated training manuals. The language is not the cold, technical prose of a British field guide. It is poetic, almost spiritual. It speaks not of dominating the landscape, but of dissolving into it. Phrases repeat like a mantra. The wind is your brother. The leaf is your cloak. There are detailed instructions on how to mimic the sound of insects, how to read the agitation of birds, how to use the jungle's own rhythm as a form of camouflage. He's not reading a military doctrine. He is reading a philosophical text on how to become a ghost. The words feel alien, unsettling, a language of warfare from another world entirely. His investigation then turns from paper to people. He seeks out the survivors, the men who have come face to face with the jungle's ghosts and lived to speak of it. Their accounts are fragmented, whispered through the haze of trauma and malaria. They don't speak of seeing a soldier. They speak of the jungle itself turning against them. A corporal, his hands shaking as he holds a tin mug of tea, describes seeing a vine that was not a vine. A private, his eyes fixed on a point 1,000 yards away, talks about a shot that came from the canopy, from a place no man could possibly be. These are not the stories of conventional combat. They are campfire tales of a haunting, of a malevolent spirit woven into the fabric of the green hell. Artie listens, and the cold logic he has always relied on begins to feel like a child's shield against a tidal wave. The whispers and fragmented reports coalesce around a single, terrifying name, the tree spiders. Artie finds crude sketches in intelligence debriefings, nightmarish drawings of men lashed to the highest branches of the jungle canopy. They show figures who have become one with the trees, their bodies wrapped in vine-like camouflage, their rifles an extension of the branches themselves. The reports state they could remain in these positions for days, motionless, silent, waiting with a patience that was utterly inhuman. Artie tries to imagine it, the heat, the insects, the agonizing cramp of muscles, the sheer mental fortitude required. It wasn't just a tactic, it was a form of self-annihilation, a surrendering of the individual to the singular purpose of the unseen kill. They were not simply hiding in the trees, they were aspiring to become them. With this new, terrifying context, Artie returns to the rifle on his bench. He picks it up, and it feels different in his hands. Its surprising lightness is no longer a sign of cheap construction, but a vital characteristic for a man who must climb into the canopy. Its stark simplicity is not a lack of sophistication, but a guarantee of function in an environment that chokes complexity. Even the flimsy monopod, which he had initially scorned, now sparks a different thought. It was never meant for the soft, sucking mud of the jungle floor. He pictures a sniper, perched precariously on a branch 40 feet in the air. The monopod wasn't for stability on the ground. It was a brace, a third point of contact to steady the rifle against the trunk of a tree. Every perceived flaw was a perfect adaptation. The pieces of the puzzle are all on the table, but they form a picture that Artie finds deeply disturbing. He has uncovered a series of brilliant practical solutions, but they do not add up to a purely mechanical advantage. Instead, they point to a philosophy of warfare that is as foreign to him as the dark, dripping jungle outside his tent. He has learned how the Japanese snipers can reload so quickly, how their rifles survive the climate, how they can occupy impossible positions. But these are answers to the wrong questions. The true question, the one that now hangs in the air with the weight of a shroud, is no longer how they do it. It is who must a man become to be willing to do it at all. The rifle is silent, but the jungle seems to whisper the beginning of an answer he is not ready to hear. He steps out of his workshop, the damp air clinging to him like a second skin. In his hand he holds not a report, but a collection of unsettling truths. He feels a strange mix of intellectual certainty and profound apprehension, like a scholar about to present a radical new theory to a council of inquisitors. He has rehearsed his arguments, trying to find the right words to translate a spiritual concept into the cold, hard language of a military briefing. He must explain that the rifle on his bench is more than a weapon. It is a key to a different way of thinking, a different way of being. He walks toward the command tent, each squelch of his boots in the mud a countdown to a confrontation he knows is inevitable. He isn't just delivering an analysis. He is challenging the very foundation upon which their war is being fought. The meeting with his commanding officer, Major Davies, is a brutal collision of two worlds. The Major is a man carved from granite and pragmatism, his desk a fortress of maps and casualty reports, his face a mask of weary frustration. He listens with a tightening jaw as Artie speaks, not of metal fatigue or barrel wear, but of chrome lining as a tool of patience, of an offset scope as a philosophy of rapid, sustained engagement. Davies holds up a hand, his patience snapping. "Get to the point, Sergeant." His voice is gravelly, worn thin by lack of sleep and too many funerals. "What are its weaknesses? What is its maximum effective range? How do we kill the men using them? I don't need a poem, Finch. I need an advantage my men can use tomorrow morning." The gap between what Artie has discovered and what the Major wants to hear is a vast, unbridgeable chasm. Artie presses on, his voice filled with an earnestness bordering on desperation. He tries to explain the concept of the tree spiders, the whispers from survivors, the idea of a soldier dissolving into the environment until he is indistinguishable from it. He presents the translated phrases from the captured manuals. "The wind is your brother. The leaf is your cloak." Davies scoffs, a harsh grating sound that cuts through the humidity. "For God's sake, are you telling me we're being killed by poets hiding in trees? This is not some spiritual quest. This is war. They are men with rifles, and rifles have flaws. Find them." He stabs a red pin onto the map, marking the location of another lost patrol. "Your friend was killed by a bullet, Sergeant, not by a haiku. Your grief is clouding your judgment. Give me a proper technical report by morning, or I'll find an armorer who can." The Major's words strike Artie like a physical blow, sending him reeling back into the humid isolation of his workshop. The lantern seems to flicker, its light suddenly weak and fragile. Doubt, cold and sharp, begins to seep into the cracks of his conviction. Was Davies right? Was he projecting his own grief, his desperate need for a grander meaning onto a simple piece of enemy hardware? He looks at the rifle, now an object of scorn, a symbol of his potential madness. He runs his hands over his face, feeling the exhaustion, the grit of the jungle under his fingernails. The line between profound insight and delusion suddenly feels terrifyingly thin. For a long, silent moment, he is tempted to write the simple, false report Davies wants, a list of technical specifications and fabricated weaknesses, a comfortable lie to soothe the command and absolve himself of this strange, heavy burden. He slumps onto his stool, the lantern casting long, dancing shadows that seem to mock his indecision. The jungle's incessant chorus presses in, no longer just background noise, but 1,000 whispering voices, questioning him. He picks up the rifle again, its weight familiar, almost an extension of his own arm now. His thumb idly traces the grain of the stock and finds them, a series of small, deliberate notches carved into the wood, hidden near the butt plate. They are not factory marks. They are personal, human. He counts them. 7. 7 small cuts, each one a life taken, a story ended, a ghost created. It is not a mechanical detail. It is a testament, a biography written in scars on wood. This was not the work of a simple soldier following orders. It was the mark of a patient, dedicated predator. The doubt evaporates, burned away by a cold, certain fire. This small human detail reignites his conviction, transforming his mission. The conflict is no longer just about understanding the enemy. It's about forcing his own side to see the truth, no matter how uncomfortable. To write a simple technical report would be more than a lie. It would be a betrayal. It would send more men into the jungle under-equipped for the real fight, a battle not against machines, but against a mindset that has achieved a terrifying harmony with this green hell. He understands that his role as an armorer has fundamentally changed. He is not just maintaining weapons, he is deciphering them, reading the soul of the enemy in the scratches on their steel and the chilling philosophy behind their design. He must become a translator, bridging the gap between the mechanical world his superiors understand and the spiritual one that is killing them. His decision is made, solid as the steel on his bench. He will not write the report Davies wants. He will write the report that needs to be written. He pulls a fresh sheet of paper towards him, the lantern light pooling on its clean surface like a stage for his defiant truth. He will detail every mechanical aspect of the Arisaka, from its chrome-lined barrel to its offset scope, with the precision of a master craftsman. But he will frame each technical point not as a strength or weakness in isolation, but as a crucial piece of a larger, terrifyingly coherent philosophy of warfare. He will explain how the machine is inseparable from the man, and how the man has become inseparable from the jungle. It is a massive professional risk. He could be demoted, dismissed as mad. But looking at the 7 small notches on the rifle's stock, he understands that the greatest risk of all is silence. The breakthrough does not arrive with the clean, satisfying click of a well-oiled mechanism, but with the roar of the heavens. A torrential downpour descends upon the camp, a violent, cleansing deluge that transforms the world into a churning sea of mud and sound. Inside his workshop, the canvas walls thrum under the assault, a frantic drumbeat accompanying the lantern's lonely, golden glow. Artie sits amidst the pieces of the Arisaka, the steel components gleaming like relics on the greased cloth. Beside them lies his newest acquisition, a small water-stained logbook taken from a fallen sniper. He picks it up, its damp pages feeling fragile, almost alive in his hands. The storm outside is a physical force, isolating him in this small bubble of light and thought, forcing a final, desperate confrontation with the mystery that has consumed him. He opens the logbook, expecting the cold calculus of a soldier's ledger, dates, locations, kill counts. Instead, he finds a soul. The pages are filled not with numbers, but with delicate, precise sketches of orchid petals and the intricate patterns on a beetle's shell. There are notes on the changing pitch of cicadas before a storm, and observations on which branches the hornbills prefer at dawn. Tucked between diagrams of wind drift and bullet drop are haikus, 3 short lines capturing the quiet sorrow of rain on a broadleaf. Artie stares, his mind struggling to reconcile the 2 images, the patient, artistic naturalist and the ruthlessly efficient killer. This was not the journal of a man who simply used the jungle as cover. It was the intimate diary of a man who had become its student, its lover, its priest. With a jolt, his gaze shifts from the pages to the rifle parts on the bench. The logbook is a lens, and through it every component of the Arisaka is suddenly brought into sharp, terrifying focus. He picks up the receiver and barrel assembly. Its surprising lightness, which he had once dismissed as a sign of cheap manufacturing, now feels purposeful. He imagines the sniper, not in a trench but ascending a colossal ironwood tree, every ounce of unnecessary weight a liability. The rifle's stark simplicity is no longer a mark of crude engineering, but a testament to its reliability. In a place where humidity and grit could choke a complex machine into silence, the Arisaka was designed to function, to endure, to be as resilient and unassuming as the vines that snaked their way up the jungle's giants. He then picks up the flimsy monopod, the feature he had scorned most of all. He deploys its thin leg, and in his mind he is no longer in his tent but 40 feet in the air, perched on a branch no thicker than his arm. The ground is a distant, irrelevant memory. Up here in the swaying canopy, There is no stable, prone position. He sees the sniper, lashed to the trunk, bringing the rifle to his shoulder. The monopod is not for the sucking mud of the jungle floor. It is a brace, a third point of contact pressed firmly against the rough bark of the tree, transforming an unstable perch into a steady firing platform. The absurdity becomes a stroke of tactical genius. The flaw was not in the rifle's design, but in his own earthbound perspective. He had been looking at it all from the wrong elevation. In that moment, under the drumming of the rain, the entire puzzle resolves into a single, chilling image. The true weapon system was never the rifle itself. It was a trinity, a perfect symbiotic union of three elements: the simple, lightweight rifle, the all-encompassing jungle, and the disciplined, self-effacing soldier. The Japanese sniper did not just hide in the jungle, he assimilated into it. He became an extension of its will, another predatory organism in its complex, violent ecosystem. The rifle was merely the fang, the jungle was the body, and the man was the patient, waiting spirit that gave it purpose. They were not fighting against soldiers in camouflage. They were fighting against ghosts woven from bark and shadow, men who had traded their humanity for a perfect, lethal harmony with the green hell. The how was answered, laid bare in steel and ink on his workbench. But as the rain began to soften its assault, a deeper, more unsettling question emerged. He looks again at the haiku about the rain, written by a man who was likely killed in a downpour just like this one. What kind of discipline, what philosophy, what depth of devotion does it take for a man to so completely surrender himself, to tie himself to a tree for days, enduring heat, insects, and the terror of isolation, all for a single perfect shot? This was not just military training. It was a form of spiritual asceticism. He understood the mechanics of the weapon, but the nature of the man who wielded it remained a profound, almost sacred mystery. The enemy was not just more disciplined. They were operating from a place he couldn't even begin to comprehend. The storm passes, leaving behind a world washed clean and a profound, dripping silence. Artie stands motionless, the logbook in one hand, the rifle stock in the other. He is no longer just an armorer, a man of cold, hard mechanics. The rifle has been his teacher, the jungle his classroom. It has systematically dismantled his worldview, replacing his intellectual certainty with a humbling, terrifying respect. He looks out through the flap of his tent at the wall of black, dripping green. It is no longer just a collection of trees and mud. It is a cathedral, a fortress, and a graveyard. And for the first time, as he stares into its depths, he feels he is finally beginning to understand the nature of the war he is fighting. The breakthrough arrives not with the clean, satisfying click of a well-oiled mechanism, but with the roar of the heavens. A torrential downpour descends upon the camp, a violent, cleansing deluge that transforms the world into a churning sea of mud and sound. Inside his workshop, the canvas walls thrum under the assault, a frantic drumbeat accompanying the lantern's lonely, golden glow. Artie sits amidst the pieces of the Arisaka, the steel components gleaming like relics on a greased cloth. Beside them lies his newest acquisition, a small water-stained logbook taken from a fallen sniper. He picks it up, its damp pages feeling fragile, almost alive in his hands. The storm outside is a physical force, isolating him in this small bubble of light and thought, forcing a final, desperate confrontation with the mystery that has consumed him. He opens the logbook, expecting the cold calculus of a soldier's ledger, dates, locations, kill counts. Instead, he finds a soul. The pages are filled not with numbers, but with delicate, precise sketches of orchid petals and the intricate patterns on a beetle's shell. There are notes on the changing pitch of cicadas before a storm, and observations on which branches the hornbills prefer at dawn. Tucked between diagrams of wind drift and bullet drop are haikus, 3 short lines capturing the quiet sorrow of rain on a broadleaf. Artie stares, his mind struggling to reconcile the two images, the patient, artistic naturalist and the ruthlessly efficient killer. This was not the journal of a man who simply used the jungle as cover. It was the intimate diary of a man who had become its student, its lover, its priest. With a jolt, his gaze shifts from the pages to the rifle parts on the bench. The logbook is a lens, and through it every component of the Arisaka is suddenly brought into sharp, terrifying focus. He picks up the receiver and barrel assembly. Its surprising lightness, which he had once dismissed as a sign of cheap manufacturing, now feels purposeful. He imagines the sniper, not in a trench but ascending a colossal ironwood tree, every ounce of unnecessary weight a liability. The rifle's stark simplicity is no longer a mark of crude engineering, but a testament to its reliability. In a place where humidity and grit could choke a complex machine into silence, the Arisaka was designed to function, to endure, to be as resilient and unassuming as the vines that snaked their way up the jungle's giants. He then picks up the flimsy monopod, the feature he had scorned most of all. He deploys its thin leg, and in his mind he is no longer in his tent but 40 feet in the air, perched on a branch no thicker than his arm. The ground is a distant, irrelevant memory. Up here in the swaying canopy, there is no stable, prone position. He sees the sniper, lashed to the trunk, bringing the rifle to his shoulder. The monopod is not for the sucking mud of the jungle floor. It is a brace, a third point of contact pressed firmly against the rough bark of the tree, transforming an unstable perch into a steady firing platform. The absurdity becomes a stroke of tactical genius. The flaw was not in the rifle's design, but in his own earthbound perspective. He had been looking at it all from the wrong elevation. In that moment, under the drumming of the rain, the entire puzzle resolves into a single, chilling image. The true weapon system was never the rifle itself. It was a trinity, a perfect symbiotic union of three elements: the simple, lightweight rifle, the all-encompassing jungle, and the disciplined, self-effacing soldier. The Japanese sniper did not just hide in the jungle. He assimilated into it. He became an extension of its will, another predatory organism in its complex, violent ecosystem. The rifle was merely the fang, the jungle was the body, and the man was the patient, waiting spirit that gave it purpose. They were not fighting against soldiers in camouflage. They were fighting against ghosts woven from bark and shadow, men who had traded their humanity for a perfect, lethal harmony with the green hell. The how was answered, laid bare in steel and ink on his workbench. But as the rain began to soften its assault, a deeper, more unsettling question emerged. He looks again at the haiku about the rain, written by a man who was likely killed in a downpour just like this one. What kind of discipline, what philosophy, what depth of devotion does it take for a man to so completely surrender himself? To tie himself to a tree for days, enduring heat, insects, and the terror of isolation, all for a single perfect shot. This was not just military training. It was a form of spiritual asceticism. He understood the mechanics of the weapon, but the nature of the man who wielded it remained a profound, almost sacred mystery. The enemy was not just more disciplined. They were operating from a place he couldn't even begin to comprehend. The storm passes, leaving behind a world washed clean and a profound, dripping silence. Artie stands motionless in his workshop, the reassembled Arisaka rifle resting in his hands. It feels different now, not as an alien object of war, but as a relic, a key that has unlocked a terrifying and humbling truth. The lantern light catches the imperial chrysanthemum stamped on the receiver, and for the first time, he doesn't see it as a mark of arrogance, but as a symbol of a devotion so complete it borders on the sublime. He had sought a mechanical flaw, a weakness in the steel he could exploit. Instead, he found a spiritual strength, a philosophy of warfare perfectly and ruthlessly harmonized with the very environment he and his comrades saw only as an enemy. The jungle outside is no longer just a wall of green. It is a living entity, and he has just read a page from its sacred text. The next morning, Artie does not deliver a technical report. He delivers a translation. On the pages laid before a skeptical Major Davies, he details every mechanical aspect of the Arisaka: the chrome-lined barrel, the offset scope, the lightweight frame. But beside each cold fact, he places its philosophical counterpart, explaining how each feature was not just a design choice, but a concession to the jungle, a tool for a man aspiring to become a ghost. He describes the haikus found next to kill tallies, the naturalist's sketches next to ballistics charts. He is not merely analyzing a rifle. He is dissecting a mindset. He explains that to fight the tree spiders, they must stop looking for soldiers. They must learn to look for a branch that moves against the wind, for a shadow that does not belong, for the subtle disharmony that signals a human spirit imposing its will upon the natural world. His report is not met with praise, but with a grudging, uncertain silence. Yet something shifts in the humid air of the camp. The training begins to change slowly, almost imperceptibly. Patrols are taught to pause, to listen not for the sound of the enemy, but for the absence of the jungle's normal chorus. Men learn to look up, their eyes scanning the canopy with a new, fearful respect. They begin to understand that their true fight is not against a tangible army, but against an idea. The idea that a man can shed his humanity and merge with his environment. Artie's discovery, born in the lonely lantern-lit confines of his workshop, becomes a quiet, life-saving gospel. It offers no new weapon, no easy solution, but something far more valuable. A new way of seeing the battlefield, and a chance to survive it. In understanding the rifle, Artie had been forced to understand the man. He saw that what his side had dismissed as fanaticism was, from another perspective, a form of profound discipline and spiritual surrender. The Japanese sniper was not merely a soldier following orders. He was an ascetic, a warrior monk who practiced a brutal form of meditation in the jungle's high cathedrals. His patience was a prayer, his stillness a sacrament. He did not seek to dominate the landscape, but to dissolve into it, to become its eyes, its breath, its sudden lethal judgment. This was the enemy they faced. Not a man armed with a superior rifle, but a man who had made himself the superior weapon, using the jungle as his shield and the simple arisaka as the sharpened point of his will. Years later, the arisaka would become a quiet fixture in Artie's life, a silent teacher resting on his wall. It was a constant reminder of the war's most crucial lesson, that technology, for all its power, is hollow. The most sophisticated rifle in the world is useless against a simpler tool, wielded by a man with a superior philosophy and an unbreakable spirit. To truly defeat an adversary, you must first be willing to understand them, to look past the steel of their weapons and into the core of their beliefs. It is a terrifying intimacy, a form of respect born in the crucible of conflict, but it is the only path to true insight. If you believe that understanding is the most powerful weapon of all, write "I understand" in the comments below. Sergeant Arthur Finch went to New Guinea as a man of mechanics, a believer in the clean, rational order of things. He left as something else entirely, a man who had stared into the soul of his enemy and found a reflection of a discipline and purpose he could only respect. He no longer looked down at the intricate workings of a machine for answers. Instead, he would look up, out into the trees, into the silent, watching spaces, with the quiet humility of one who knows the greatest battles are fought not on the fields of mud and blood, but in the vast, untamed wilderness of the human spirit. For he learned in that green hell that the true measure of any weapon is never found in the coldness of its steel, but in the fire of the soul that gives it purpose.